Good morning, everyone. This is B. Ramarao from SRRS Government Polytechnic College, Sirsilla. General Engineering, Chemistry, and Environmental Studies for Diploma First Year students. Common subject C204. Today we discuss about Forthfloatation process. Forthfloatation process. On the completion of this period, you would be able to know about methods of concentration of force. Methods of concentration of force. In these methods of concentration of force, one of the important method we discuss about Forthfloatation process. Forthfloatation process. On the completion of this period, you would be able to know about what is forthfloatation, what is the principle using forthfloatation process, processing of fourth agent, what are the reactions are involving in forthfloatation. In this method, we discuss about concentration of ore. What is concentration? The process of removal of impurities. The process of removal of impurities from ore is called concentration of ore, or dressing or benefaction of the result ore is called concentration. The following methods are used ore dressing process. In this concentration method, removal of impurities from ore is called concentration. Removal of impurities by three methods. One is hand picking process, second one lavigation process, and third one forthfloatation process. Forthfloatation process. Already we discussed hand picking process and lavigation process. What is hand picking process? In this method, sand and small stones are removed. In hand picking method, sand particles and small stones are removed from ore. The ore is broken into small pieces and washed with water. The sand and mud adheres to the ore washed away by water. Then the piece of ore are dropped on a rotating belt and stones are weeded out. In this method, small sand and stones are removed from ore by this hand picking process. Sands and stones are removed from hematite Fe2O3 by hand picking process. In this method, removal of sands and stone by using hands process is called hand picking process. Hand picking process. Then after lavigation process. Lavigation process. In this method is based on the difference in gravity of ore and gangue particles. Ore and gangue particles. This method based on different in gravity of the ore and gangue particles. What is gangue? The earthly materials are unwasted or unwanted particles or impurities associated with ore is called gangue. The most gang particles are common gang materials are quartz, calcite, fluoride, siderite. The method of extraction of method depends on the nature of impurities and manner in which they are bound to ore. So this method is based on different in gravity of ore and gang particles. The ore is ground to powder in ball mills and mixture of this powder and water is passed over vibrating table. The heavier ore particles are settled on table and light gang particles washed away along with water. Generally, oxide ores and carbonate ores are concentrated by this method. Concentrated by this method. So, oxides, ores, and carbonate ores are concentrated by this method. Castorites is concentrated by this method. Separation of alluvial soil in extraction of gold. Galena is purified by this method. So now we discuss fourth flotation process. In this process, flotation is a physico-chemical separation process. Physico-chemical separation process that utilize the difference in the surface properties of the valuable and gangue minerals. It is a physico and chemical separation process that utilize the difference in the surface properties of the valuable and gangue minerals. Fourth flotation involves three different phases: solid, fine or powdered, liquid, water, and fourth agent. The process of separation of mineral includes three important mechanisms: true flotations, selective attachment to air bubbles, entertainment in the water which passes through the float. In this process, separation of the utilization of different in the surface properties of the valuable and gangue minerals involve three different phases: solid phase, fine or powdered, liquid, water, and fourth agent. The process of separation of mineral includes three important mechanisms: true flotation, that is selective attachment to air bubbles, entertainment in the water which passes through the port, and third one, true flotation dominates the recovery of the valuable mineral, and the other two decide the separation efficiency between the valuable and the gangue. The flotation dominates the recovery of the valuable minerals, and the other two decide the separation efficiency between the valuable and the gangue. Flotation process. In this process can be applied to relatively fine particles because if the particles are coarse and heavy, their weight will be greater than the adhesions between the particles and the air bubbles, and the particles will detach from the bubbles. The flotation process can be applied to relatively fine particles because if the particles are coarse and heavy, their weight will be greater than the adhesions between the particles and the air bubbles, and the particles will be detached from the bubbles. In this process, used for the concentration of sulfide ores, this method is also used in case of ore containing very small quantity of mineral particles mineral particles which are not easy to separation from gangue. Zinc blende, ZNS, iron pyrites, FeS2, copper pyrites, CuFeS2, etc. are concentrated by this method. So, in this process can be applied to relatively fine particles because if the particles are heavy, their weight will be greater than the adhesion between the particles and the air bubble, and the particles will detach from the bubbles. There are two ways of flotation: direct flotation, in which the mineral is attached to the float and the gangue remain in the polymer, in which the mineral is attached to the float and the gangue remain the tailing. So, in this flotation process, basic principle. What are the basic principles are used in flotation process? What are the basic principles used in flotation process? Basic principle. In this process, commences with communications to increase the surface area of the ore. The ore is ground to fine powder and wetted with water to form slurry. A surfactant chemical known as collector is mixed with slurry to render the desired mineral hydrophobic. This slurry is then placed in the water bath containing powder, which is aerated to create bubbles. The desired mineral escape water by getting attached to the air bubbles, which rise to surface and form what called fourth. This fourth then removed and concentrated mineral is refined. In this method, the desired mineral escape water by getting attached to the air bubbles, which rise to surface and form what is called fourth. This fourth is then removed and the concentrated mineral is refined. So, in this method, used as a collector, water, fourth agent used in this method. Mechanism of fourth agent. Mechanism. How to form a fourth agent in sulfide ore? The basic of Forthfloatation is the difference in the wettability of the mineral and gangue particles. The basic of Forthfloatation is the difference in the wettability of the mineral and gangue particles. And the basic of wettability of particles and classified as hydrophobic and hydrophilic. Hydrophobic and hydrophilic. The valuable minerals can attach to the air bubbles only if they are hydrophobic. Once they reach the surface due to the buoyancy of the air bubbles, the particle bubbles contact can sustain only if they form a stable fourth. The stability of the fourth depends on the strength of the attachment of the bubble to the mineral surface. This strength can be estimated with the help of Young-Draper equation, which relates the strength of attachment to the interfacing energies. This mechanism of the fourth. In this method, the basic of Forthfloatation is difference in wettability of mineral and gangue particles. On the basis of wettability of particles are classified as hydrophobic and hydrophilic. The valuable minerals can attach to the air bubbles only if they are hydrophobic. Once they reached the surface due to the air bubbles, the particle bubbles contact can be sustained only if they form a suitable fourth. The suitability or stability of the fourth depends on the strength of the attachment of the bubbles to the mineral surface. This strength can be estimated with the help of Young-Draper equation, which relates the strength of attachment to the interfacing energies. So, in this method, we are using fourth agent, water mixed with ore, passes of air by using high electrical field, agitator, cell, air, mine Air bubbles. Air bubbles attached to ore particles to go to the surface of the container. Minerals principles to be used in this method. At the completion of this period, you would be able to know what is dressing process, electromagnetic separation, Forthfloatation process. In this method, principle of Forthfloatation process. Flotation is a physico-chemical separation process that utilizes the difference in surface protecting of the valuable mineral and unwanted gangue minerals. Flotation is a physico-chemical separation process that utilizes the difference in surface properties of the valuable minerals and the unwanted gangue minerals. Selective attachment to air bubbles for true flotation. Entertainment in the water which passed through the pore. Physical entertainment between particles in the pore attached to air bubbles, often referred as a aggregation. Flotation is a physico-chemical separation process that utilizes the difference in surface properties of valuable minerals and unwanted gangue minerals. Selective attachment to air bubbles. Entertainment in the water which passes through the pore. Physical entrapment between particles in the pore attached to air bubbles, often referred as a aggregation. In this method, using Forthfloatation process, by this method based on difference in the wetting of mineral particles, gangue particles with oil. And water. When sulfide ore containing gangue, that is impurities, are separated in a mixture of water and pine oil or olive oil, the pine oil wets only the mineral particles, whereas the water wets the gangue particles. Water wets the gangue particles. This method based on the difference in the wetting of mineral particles, gangue particles with oil and water. When sulfide ore containing gangue are separated in mixture of water and pine oil, olive oil, the oil wets only the mineral particles, whereas water wets the gangue particles. The steps are involving in Forthfloatation process. In this method, powdered ore particles, powdered ore mixed with water in a container, addition of oil like pine oil, olive oil added into container. This pine oil wets only the mineral particles, whereas the water wets in gang particles. So, in this method, powdered ore mixed with water and oil particles by passes of air through this container, separation of ore particles to move attached to bubbles on the surface of container. It is separation by using other containers or spatulas. So, steps are involved in minerals recovery through flotation. Recovery through flotation. Liberation, establish hydrophobic film on minerals that are not naturally hydrophobic. Promote bubble formation. Bubble formation. In this process, what is the process? The powdered sulfide ore is suspended in a mixture of water and phenyl in large tank. Sodium ethyl xanthate is used as a fourthing agent. What is fourth agent? Sodium ethyl xanthate is used as a fourth agent. It is wet only the mineral particles. A strong current of air at more than 2 atmosphere is applied to acetate mixture of water, ore and pine oil. A strong current of air at more than 2 atmosphere is applied to acetate mixture of water, ore and pine oil. The powdered sulfide ore is separated in a mixture of water and pine oil in large tank. Sodium ethyl xanthate is used as fourthing agent. A strong current of air at more than 2 atmosphere is applied to acetate mixture of water, ore and pine oil. The ore particles rise up along with foam or bubbles. Collector like pine oil, fatty acids, etc. enhance non-wettability of mineral particles. Fourth, stabilizers like cresol, aniline, etc. are used to stabilize the fourth agent. Compounds like lime, sodium carbonates are added to force the ore particles in the suspension. These are called conditioner. Mixture of sulfide ore are separated by using depresentation. For example, ore containing zinc sulfate or lead sulfate are separated by using sodium cyanide is depresent. The fourth is removed mechanically from the tank and allowed to settle. When foam disappear, the sulfide particles separated out. The gang settle down at the bottom of the tank. In this method, the separation of the process of Forthfloatation process by using powdered sulfide ore is suspended in a mixture of water and phenyl in a large tank. Sodium ethyl xanthate used as a fourth agent. A strong current of air at more than 2 atmosphere is applied to acetate mixture of water, ore and phenyl. The ore particles rise up along with form collectors like phenyl, fourth stabilizers like cresol, aniline, etc. Compounds like lime, sodium carbonates are added to float the ore particles in the suspension. These are called conditioner. Mixture of sulfide ores are separated by using depressants. So the fourth is removed by mechanically from the tank and allowed to settle. When the disappear, the sulfide particles separate out, the gang settle down at the bottom of the tank. In this method, this process is used for sulfide ore. This process is used for sulfide ore. Oil can wet sulfides, oil floats and water. Sulfide ores are first ground to powder and water is added. That one is first step. This process is used for sulfide ore like zinc sulfide, ZNS, lead sulfide, PBS. Lead sulfide means PBS, iron pyrites, FeS2, copper pyrites, CuFeS2. These sulfide ores are separated by this method. Oils can wet sulfides like phenyl, olive oils are used in wet sulfide ores. Oil floats on water. Sulfide ores are first ground to powder and water is added. Then that one is first process. In this first method, the sulfide ores are first ground to powder and added water in a container. The fine oil is added and the emulsion is agitated by passing compressed air. Oil and float on the surface along with the sulfide ore. The fine oil added and the emulsion is agitated by passing compressed air. Oil and float on the surface along with the sulfide ore. That one is second step. As a strong current applied to agitate mixture of water, ore and fine oil, the ore particles separated on the surface along with the sulfide ore. The gang particles being insoluble in oil remain at the bottom of the water tank. The fourth is removed and allowed to settle down. The gang particles being insoluble in oil remain at the bottom of the water tank. The fourth is removed and allowed to settle down. This is called Forthfloatation process. This process is used for sulfide ores of copper, lead, zinc, iron, etc. The gang particles being insoluble in oil remain at the bottom of the water tank. The fourth is removed and allowed to settle down. This is called Forthfloatation process. This process is used for sulfide ore of copper, lead, zinc. Forthfloatation process for the concentration of sulfide ore. Concentration of sulfide ore. Water containing vinyl, water containing vinyl ore particles powdered, water, vinyl taken in a large container by passes of air at 1 atmosphere pressure, high strong current applied through this container, compressed air passes through this container. Fourth is bubbles carrying sulfates or particles on the surface of container. This one is separation of by using spatulas. Gang particles does not dissolve in water. Those are settled down bottom of the container. This method is called forthfloatation process. In this forthfloatation process, for the concentration of sulfide ore, this sulfide particle separation by using vinyl, fourth agent of sodium ethyl xanthate. This fourth agent and vinyl separation of wetting sulfide ore particles. So, in this process, what are the example for of magnetic substance? What are the example of magnetic substance? Magnetic substance. Iron, cobalt, nickel, iron, cobalt, nickel. What are the example of magnetic substance? Iron, cobalt, nickel. These three are magnetic substance metals. Magnetic substance compounds are iron, cobalt, nickel. This process is based on principle. Which process? Forthfloatation process based on the principle that is ore particles wetted by oil, gang particles wetted by water. This process is suitable for concentration of sulfide ore. This process based on ore particles wetted by oil. Ore particles wetted by oil. This process is suitable for concentration of sulfide ore. This process is suitable for concentration of sulfide ores. This process is based on principle of ore particles wetted by oil. This process is suitable for concentration of sulfide ore. For example, galena, lead sulfide, zinc blend, ZnS. This process is suitable for concentration of sulfide ores of galena, PbS, zinc sulfide, ZnS or zinc blend, iron pyrites FeS2, copper pyrites CuFeS2. In this method, used a separation of sulfide ores of galena, PbS, zinc blend, iron pyrites, copper pyrites. Separation of sulfate ores of this method. The powdered sulfide ore. The powdered sulfide ore is mixed with water and fine oil. The powdered sulfide ore is mixed with water and fine oil. Powder to sulfide ore. This method difference in the wetting of mineral particles and gangue particles with oil. So, when sulfide ore containing gangue particles are suspended in a mixture of water and fine oil or olive oil, the fine oil wet only the mineral particles, whereas water wets the gangue particles. In this method, the powdered ore or sulfide ore is suspended in a mixture of water and fine oil in a large tank. The powdered sulfide ore is mixed with water and fine oil. The mixture is stirred rigorously by blowing compressed air by passes of compressed air at 2 atmosphere pressure. The powdered sulfate ore is suspended in a mixture of water and fine oil in a large tank. Sodium ethyl xanthate is used as a fourth agent. A strong current of air at more than 2 atmosphere passes through this container. Is applied to hesitate mixture of water and fine oil. The ore particle rise up along with bubbles. So the oil form forth with air. The oil form forth with air. Then after the ore particles stick to the fourth and floats on the surface. The ore particles strike to the fourth and floats on the surface. The gangue particles wetted by the water and sink to the bottom of container. The gangue particles wetted by the water and sink to the bottom of container. Bottom of the container. The fourth is skimmed off and concentrated ore particles are recovered. The concentrated ore particles are recovered. So, in this process, used as a collector as removal of separation of sulfate ore. Render minerals hydrophobic by attached to the surface of mineral particles. A collector's polar head will attach to a polar mineral surface, leaving the non-polar tails towards the surrounding water molecules, rendering the mineral hydrophobic. This one is collector. Summary. We have discussed ore dressing method. We have discussed ore dressing process of sulfide ores of zinc sulfide, zinc blend, iron pyrites, FeS2, galena, PbS, copper pyrites, CuFeS2. We have discussed ore dressing methods. Those were Forthfloatation process. in this method used for the separation of sulfate ores. This method also used in case of ore containing very small quantity of mineral particles which are not easily separated from gangue particles. In fourth flotation, the gangue particles wetted by oil, water, alkali, acid. The ore particles are wetted by oil, water, alkali, acid. In this fourth flotation, the gangue particles are wetted by water. Ore particles are wetted by oil. So answer water. In fourth flotation, the gangue particles wetted by water. In fourth flotation process, the ore particles are wetted by oil. So your answer water. In fourth flotation, the gangue particles wetted by oil. On this topic, frequently asked questions about this topic. Describe fourth flotation process to concentration of ore. Describe fourth flotation process to concentration of ore. The ore in this method, separation of sulfate ores by using zinc blend, etc. Zinc blend or sulfate ore powdered, added water, vinyl taken into a large container, addition of fourth agent of sodium methyl xanthate by process of current of air at 2 atmosphere pressure, the ore particles wetted by oil and separation of above of the container, and gangue particles wetted by water and the separation of bottom of container. So, on the completion of this topic, we discuss about forthfloatation process, principle, process, what are the reactions are involving in this method, diagram, about we discuss in this hour. So, thank you once again.